The outskirts of Krakow. The rumble of their engine faded as they pulled up to the makeshift checkpoint, a wall of weary-eyed militiamen eyeing them like wolves sizing up prey. Chuck felt the weight of their gazes, tense and scrutinizing, each moment stretching thin like the last echo of gunfire fading into the shadows of the city behind them. Connor's hand twitched near his sidearm, a nervous reaction not lost on Chuck, who gave him a warning glance. Tensions were high. There was no room for mistakes. The checkpoint stretched across the road, a crude arrangement of sandbags, rusty corrugated metal, and the odd wooden pallet creating an impromptu wall between them and their destination. The signs of former affluence were scarce, now cloaked by the grime of war. Stripped cars littered the landscape. It reeked of burnt fuel and fear, a real testament to the remnants of a society fighting for survival. Oscar Wolfgard adjusted the collar of his jacket, breathing deeply to steady his nerves. His mind raced through possible scenarios, each more chaotic than the last. To his left, Harvey and Franco sat on edge, hands resting on their knees, eyes darting from the commander to the soldiers around him. It wasn't just a matter of convincing a man to let them pass. It was about getting past the guards, or being put to work in the city as a robotniki or slave. The commander, a grizzled figure draped in tattered camouflage, approached them slowly. Oscar noted the wear etched deep into the man's face. His eyes were sharp, like flint, ready to strike. "Papers, please," the commander barked, arms crossed, every inch of him a warning. "We're escorting Marietta Grabowski," Chuck stated, trying to summon all the authority he could muster. "Granddaughter of Mr. and Mrs. Lenarska. We have orders to deliver her safely into the city." The name hung in the air. The commander narrowed his eyes, as if he could see through the lies that swirled in the chaotic space around them. Connor leaned closer, ready to bolster Oscar's claim, but it was the commander's next move that made the air feel electric. "Grabowski? Never heard of the name. You got citizen papers?" His voice was laced with skepticism. A flicker of doubt played across Chuck's mind, but he couldn't let it show. Not now. Oscar took a chance, appealing to the man's need for caution and safety. "Look, we were given instructions, assurances of protection for both us and her family. You can check whatever records you have. They were influential, even before, well, you know." He let the unspoken fears linger in the air. A moment of silence stretched between them, thick like molasses, before the commander broke it. "And why would I believe you?" he challenged, eyes glinting. "Because I'm here and she's in the back," Connor interjected, coolly leaning forward onto his .50 cal. "And I'm armed with more than just words." His gaze fell unwaveringly on the commander, a promise buried deep within. "You let us through, or this could end badly for all of us." Oscar, taking a gamble the Lenarskas were still of some importance and not having the slightest clue, added, "I'm sure they won't like their granddaughter's saviors being fucked around and her being turned away." The commander hesitated, glancing back at his men. Oscar caught their fidgeting bodies, whispering concerns barely contained in the lines of tension on their faces. It was the softest of murmurs, but he could sense the urge to choose safety over confrontation. Chuck seized the moment, keeping his voice steady and low. "While you're at it, a safer route, Commander. You'll gain more than you lose by helping us out." Another heartbeat passed before the commander scratched the back of his neck, deliberating. The air grew stifling. A trickle of sweat crept down Chuck's back, mingling with the dread tightening his chest. Then the tension broke with a sigh from the commander, his grip slackening. "Okay," he muttered. "Follow this road around the south, then head due east through Maelbwonia, Wobzuf, and Piasek. That'll take you through one more checkpoint, but as it's nighttime, it'll be unmanned. From there you should have a clear run into Star Miasto, the old town. You'll avoid any patrols there, at least for now. You need to move, understood?" A collective sigh of relief escaped from the team, the tension easing enough to breathe again. Chuck nodded gratefully. "Understood, Commander, thank you." "Get moving," he barked. but there was a flicker of respect in his eyes as they began to roll past the checkpoint, their hearts hammering in synchrony. As they drove into the uncharted streets of Krakow, the team allowed themselves a moment to breathe. "That was close," Franco muttered, shaking his head, adrenaline still coursing through him. "Too close," Connor agreed, a slight smile playing on his lips. "But we made it." Once they reached Piasek, they halted outside a crumbling building. Chuck led Connor and Harvey through dust-choked halls. Walls crumbled inward, ready to collapse at the slightest disturbance, and a metallic tang set their nerves on edge. With weapons drawn, they stepped over debris until Chuck signaled clear. In what had once been a living room, Connor spotted an SKS rifle. "Reliability 5, he said, shouldering the worn weapon. Harvey rummaged through the wreckage and turned up 2 broken walkie-talkies, a faded Polish Bible, and, incongruously, a child's plastic sword. They shared a wry look before stowing their finds. Across the street, the group noticed a pop-up mobile market. Wind-snapped canvas shelters where haggard merchants displayed their wares. Bullets arranged by caliber, grenades nestled in wooden crates, medicine vials glinting under improvised lanterns. After tense negotiations, they secured their haul. 4 grenades, 2 frag, and 2 smoke. 4 doses of antibiotics, 2 anti-tank rounds, and 2 gas masks. The near-toothless trader who supplied most of it counted their payment with nicotine-stained fingers. Franco haggled nearby, gesturing toward a variety of goods spread across a filthy blanket. "We'll have 150 liters of alcohol fuel and some fishing gear," he requested. Harvey shot him a skeptical look, but the weathered vendor just laughed. "Fish or men, both need the right bait." Purchases secured, they hauled the gear back to the waiting Humvees. Oscar hefted a crate of ammunition, grunting with satisfaction. "We're set for a while now?" Harvey cinched down a strap over the medical supplies, his mouth a hard line. "Until bullets start flying again." The vehicle's engines growled to life, drowning out the murmur of commerce behind them. Onward to the Lenaskas. As they approached the Lenaska estate, the landscape transformed. A walled compound rose from the earth, like a fortress against the chaos surrounding it. Armed guards patrolled its perimeter, a stark reminder of the world outside. The scent of roses carried faintly on the breeze, an incongruous whisper of life in this harsh reality. Oscar glanced at his companions, the weariness etched into their faces contrasting with the fragile hope that flickered within him. "Who the fuck are these people?" he murmured to himself. They stepped through the gates, eyes scanning the manicured grounds where nature fought valiantly against decay. The estate, though not ostentatious, still held onto the vestiges of wealth and power, its faded elegance a silent testament to the Lenarska family's enduring influence. The team could see a glass house in the distance, where an old man with stooped shoulders tended to his roses, the bright petals defiantly contrasting the dreary landscape surrounding them. "This place, it's a relic," Connor muttered, keeping his voice low, an instinctual response honed from years of stealth. "It shouldn't exist anymore." "Yet, here we are," Harvey replied, surveying the area. "Means they've got resources. We should keep our heads about us." As they approached the main house, the tension in the air thickened, blending with the rich scent of the roses that somehow filled the atmosphere with warmth. Mrs. Lenarska appeared in the doorway, framed by the light spilling from within. Her presence radiated an inviting aura, yet the uncertainty of their surroundings gnawed at the back of Chuck's mind. Then a sudden movement caught their attention from behind. From their vehicle, Marietta emerged like a burst of color in a black and white world. "Dziadek! Babcia!" she shouted, rushing towards her grandparents with unrestrained joy. The couple's faces shifted from surprise to elation as they enveloped their granddaughter in a warm embrace. Chuck's heart softened at the sight. This moment was a reminder that, amidst the devastation, humanity still clung to hope and love. The team stood silently for a moment, taking in the scene, the vibrant reunion grounding them, imbuing them with a fleeting sense of peace. But the warmth dissipated as Mr. Lenarska turned, eyes narrowing with a mix of gratitude and determination. He approached the group with his wife, their expressions shifting to a serious demeanor. "Thank you for this," Mr. Lenarska spoke, his voice steadier than they expected. "Our daughter, Joanna, is she okay?" "What about Roman?" Oscar replied, "They are well. We helped them out at Crespis. One tough fight, but we got the job done. They said you might be able to help us if we got Marietta to you." "We can help, but you must understand that we prefer to remain anonymous in our assistance." In his hands, he presented each team member with citizen passes and gave Oscar 500 ration chits for the group. "You did well in safeguarding and getting Marietta to us. We appreciate your efforts more than words can convey," Mrs. Lenarska added, her voice soothing yet resolute. Chuck glanced at the group, their reactions a mix of surprise and relief. The exchange bore a heavier significance than mere rations. It symbolized a link to humanity that seemed to be fading in the outside world. He took a breath, refocusing as the gears of their mission turned once more in his mind. The Lenarskas disappeared back into their estate, leaving the team staring at their new papers and ration chits. Oscar folded the documents carefully, tucking them into his breast pocket where they crinkled against his chest. The garden's roses still perfumed the air, a stark contrast against the smell of gun oil and sweat that clung to them all. 500 ration chits, Franco whispered, thumbing the edge of his chin. "We could actually eat something decent tonight." Chuck checked his watch. "We move in 5. Blackstone Tavern's our next stop." He glanced at the others, catching Harvey's eye. "Let's find this Biggy the Bear." Connor nodded, already scanning the perimeter. "Let's hope he's as friendly as our last hosts." As the ragged sign above the Blackstone Tavern swayed in the wind, Chuck stepped onto the cracked pavement, each footfall echoing with the weight of uncertainty. The tavern loomed ahead, its time-worn walls absorbing the moonlight. A sense of foreboding danced in the air, intertwining with the knot lodged deep in his chest. The large wooden door creaked open, revealing a darkened interior bathed in a low amber glow. Chuck held back a wave of anxiety as they were met by a hulking figure, a man who seemed to hold the weight of the world on his broad shoulders. Biggy, the proprietor, had the sort of presence that silenced rooms. A shiver ran down Oscar's spine. "Leave your toys at the door," Biggy barked, eyes narrowing as he assessed the newcomers. Weapons were surrendered with reluctant hands, the clattering sounds echoing ominously in the confined space. Unarmed, they stepped over the threshold, muscles tensed, like a fighter entering a ring to face an opponent 10 times their size. Connor's posture remained assertive, a quick glance scanning the room, sharp as a blade. "House rules," Biggy continued, voice deep and unyielding. 50-meter exclusion zone around my tavern. No weapons inside and no violence unless I say so. And if you tell me a lie or sneak a weapon inside." His gaze hardened, igniting the air with an invisible threat. "Now, how may I assist you, gentlemen?" Biggy added, forcing his voice through the tension. "We have a mutual acquaintance, Charlie Manfredensen," said Oscar. Biggy leaned forward, skepticism etched across his rugged features. "Charlie? He ain't brought many friends through these doors in a long time. Prove it." The challenge settled heavily upon them. Oscar swallowed, recalling the details they had unearthed during the rescue. The engraved watch, the sister who had succumbed to leukemia in '96. "He told us to mention the watch, the one with the inscription. It was special to you, from your sister, Moya." A flicker of recognition crossed Biggy's face, mingled with doubt. The air crackled, their group shared glances, a silent understanding of how hard it is to trust people this day and age. Oscar pressed further. "We risked our lives to get to you, Biggy. He said you could help us out with work, get us set up in Krakow." "Is that so?" Then Biggy's expression shifted, just slightly, his wariness mingling with intrigue. Oscar couldn't help but feel the weight of every word. "We're here to work, for anyone. For food, for water, for somewhere to sleep. Charlie entrusted us with that information, and if you don't believe us..." He let the sentence hang, knowing they needed to forge a connection fast or they could find themselves out in the night. The silence grew taut before Biggy's demeanor softened. just enough for Oscar to feel a glimmer of hope ignite. "All right, you've got my attention. I can help you, but cross me once, and once only." Oscar felt the tension begin to dissipate, the conversation easing the grip of anxiety wrapped around them. "We're fighting a battle far bigger than we realized, one that involves powers at play in Poland." With a grunt of acknowledgement, Biggy gestured toward a corner table as they took their seats. The patrons watched them with curiosity, eyes glimmering like hidden knives in the dim light. Biggy, now relaxed, laid out his network. "Listen up. I've got a collection of key players you might want to connect with. Steve Bergman from the CIA, Peter Rasmussen at DIA, Kazimir Kozlov in the KGB, and Daniel Dmitriev, the GRU operative." Each name carried weight, a reminder of the tangled web they were wading into. The group listened intently as Biggy continued, detailing the tangled threads of intelligence weaving through their plight. The mention of Marcel Nabozny brought a flare of tension, each of them knowing he danced between loyalties to all factions, but mostly those loyal to Poland. The group suspected he has ties to the Lenarska family also, but not confirmed. "And don't forget the Kurgan," Biggy added, a grin cutting across his face. "He runs the black market for the Vorovskoy Mir. Not always reliable, but if you need gear, he's your man. Just know he likes his rates high." "How high?" Connor interjected, leaning forward, interested. "Common items, double the cost for same-day delivery. Scarce goods, 1.5 times. Rare items, up to 200% for next session delivery. If you can get past his guards, it's a risk worth taking." Oscar felt like he was drowning in a sea of conflicting agendas. Everyone they needed seemed to be playing their own game, advancing personal interests or manipulating others for their own benefit. Otto, Franco, and Harvey's eyes swept across the tavern, catching fragments of hushed conversations. 2 German couples leaned in conspiratorially at a corner table, their voices dropping to whispers whenever Nazi gold or the American Guardian slipped into their exchange. Nearby, 3 burly men snickered maliciously about robotniki women they'd conscripted for labor. By the bar, a pair of wide-eyed kids gestured animatedly, describing a helicopter touchdown near the castle. Franco nudged Harvey, both men silently noting each snippet as potential intelligence. "Your tavern seems to be quite the information hub," Oscar remarked to Biggy. A low chuckle rumbled from Biggy's chest. "Talk is cheap until it isn't. The walls here absorb more secrets than most confessionals. Keep listening, but watch your step. The wrong rumor could put you in a crossfire." While the group continued their discussion, Connor's attention drifted to a woman across the room. Her dark bob cut accentuated sharp cheekbones, and she moved with predatory elegance in her black cardigan, tights, and knee-high boots. She floated between tables, occasionally whispering to Biggy or Dmitriev, drawing Connor's gaze like iron to a magnet. "Who's she?" he asked, nodding towards the women. "That's Ada," Biggy responded, eyebrows arched in amusement. "Just a friend to some and even more to others. A right lovely one at that. But steer clear unless you want to end up tangled in another fight. She has claws." Connor narrowed his gaze. I'm just curious." But the intrigue lingered, a tantalizing thread amidst the chaos swirling around them. "All right, gents," Biggy cut through the murmur of distractions. "You lot want a job? Then let's talk business. Before I open you up to the mercenary board, I've got a task for you. You can call it Sweet Sister Magdalene. Sounds easy, doesn't it? But don't be fooled. Magdalene is a friend of mine's sister who owes a hefty drug debt to some bandits nearby. They're holding her to sell into slavery. They've got her holed up in Nowy Świat, a rough part of town, but nothing you can't handle." Oscar met the gazes of the group, each one a flicker of determination. "Well, we need the work. We'll take it. To be continued."